It was summer, a weekend, with a warm breeze and lingering heat. My college roommate Penny was back from out of town and specifically called to demand grilled salmon, threatening to drain my salary for the month. I joked on the phone, "As long as you can eat it, I'll treat you to the entire Hudson River." After not seeing her for so long, Penny had filled out quite a bit. We sat beside the steaming fish stew pot, chatting about our college days and current jobs, from the popular TV series like Friends or The Office to the on-again, off-again relationship of a famous couple like Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. Getting excited, Penny ordered 2 bottles of whiskey, saying that was the only way to create the right mood. For her mood, I downed a cup first. Penny picked up a piece of fish and said, "Holly, there's this viral article online, something about the girl I crushed on for 10 years is getting married today. What a shame." I responded with a that's a coincidence. She was puzzled. "What's a coincidence? Your crush is getting married today too?" I said, "No way. I was saying, the guy who crushed on me." I counted on my fingers and continued, "The guy who crushed on me for 19 years is getting married today, too." Penny's eyes widened. "Who are you talking about? I've never heard of him." I said, "Of course you wouldn't. No one does." Penny giggled foolishly. "What does this young man look like? Let me see." I pulled out my cell phone and found a photo. It was taken one winter when I and a boy were watching ice sculpture exhibition in the square. He was wearing a black and white puffer jacket, his earlobes red from the cold. Because he was so tall, he had his arm around my shoulder, looking down at me with a slightly displeased expression, his thick eyebrows furrowed under the colorful lights of the ice sculpture exhibition. In the photo, the light on my face was dim, and I couldn't make out my expression. I just odd I looked like I was glaring at him. From a distance, the two of us looked like we were having a surprisingly deep and affectionate gaze. Penny took the phone and squinted at the photo for a long time, probably trying to focus. After a while, she exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, isn't this you in college? What fraternity was this kid in? I've never seen him before." I said, "He wasn't in any fraternity." Penny pouted. "Didn't you say he was getting married today? What does the bride look like? Is she prettier than you? How pretty is she? How pretty is she?" I wondered how to answer. Through the thin haze of steam and the nearly empty bottle of whiskey, I lowered my head, the alcohol rushing to my cheeks, burning so hot I could barely open my eyes. After a moment, I said, "She must be prettier than the moon." 1. Winter 2008, Buffalo, New York. Sean and I were frozen in time by a flash of light at the ice sculpture exhibition night in '08. 20-some hours before, he was still across the pond in Great Britain, putting on airs under the damp sunlight, or studying finance so hard it was killing him. When he appeared before me, he had only one sentence. He said, "Holly, I'm back." If he wasn't covered in travel dust, I would have thought I was standing on the shady side of the old apartment building, waiting for him to come running back after saying goodbye to a group of friends after playing soccer at the stadium, still full of energy, panting, and saying to me, "Holly, I'm back." Then, after brushing off my nagging about not drinking water immediately after strenuous exercise, he'd excitedly tell me how well he played, how little Fatty was wider than the goal but couldn't guard it, and how so-and-so was pretty good at dribbling. Just like always. I don't remember how I learned Sean's name, and I don't remember the first thing I said to him. It's like I don't remember how I called out Mom for the first time in my life. Mom is just Mom. Sean is just Sean. It wasn't until 2011 when I saw the movie Flipped, and saw the beautiful, picture-perfect blonde little girl holding hands with the boy she liked at first sight, that I suddenly felt a pang in my heart. I was absolutely sure that Sean didn't remember anything either because our first meeting was even earlier than the little boy and girl in the movie. If we weren't hitting each other and crying, that would have been a good day. There was no way we would have held hands so peacefully. Sean and I lived across the hall from each other since we were little. Often I would come home, go upstairs, take out my key, insert it into the lock, and before I could even open the door across the hall would slowly open in response to the sound. Then Sean, in his slippers, baggy shorts, and a t-shirt, would lean lazily against the doorframe, his narrow eyes half awake, and say, "I'm a little hungry." Then, after I opened the door and said, "Come on over," he would leap across the threshold from his side to mine. Because of Sean, I went from only being able to cook noodle soup to skillfully making a plate of barbecue ribs. But Sean always said my mom's cooking was better than mine. On this point, I thought he was definitely flattering my mom. I forced him to tell the truth several times, but he always stuck to his lie. Sean's mooching was due to his constantly empty house. Maybe it couldn't even be called a home anymore. His parents were doing business out of town and were never around. Since he was little, he had been entrusted to his Sean's grandmother, who was in her 50s. It was okay when he was little, and Sean's grandmother took care of him attentively. But when Sean got a little older, able to run, jump, and feed himself, she started playing mahjong with a group of friends, shirtless and full of vigor, every day. So every mealtime, my mom would drag me away from the TV and tell me to go call Sean over to eat. She often told me, "Holly, you need to take care of Sean. He's younger than you. He's your little brother." I said, "Mom, look, he's only a year younger than me, but he's so much taller. It's all because you feed him so much. Why didn't you raise your own daughter to be so strong?" My dad said, "Girls look better when they're skinny." From childhood to adulthood, Sean and I were as if we had never been apart. We went to the same elementary school, the same junior high school, and even the same high school. In elementary school, as soon as the bell rang to signal the end of classes, he would be waiting for me at the door of my classroom to walk home together. One morning, I woke up with both sides of my face swollen like giant buns. As soon as I entered the classroom in the morning, the teacher called me over. He stared at my face carefully for a long time and then said to me, "Holly, you should go home today. You have mumps. It's contagious. Come back when you're better." Then, amidst the terrified gazes of the other children in the class, who were avoiding me like the plague, the teacher unequivocally sent me home. That evening, it was time for school to let out, but Sean didn't come home. Sean's grandmother was so worried that she didn't even play mahjong. She paced around outside the building, until Sean slowly walked back from afar an hour later. Sean's grandmother went up to him, about to give him a lecture, but saw bruises and cuts on his little face. Immediately, she was shocked and concerned, asking him what happened and if he had been fighting outside. Sean's little face still looked indignant at that time. He said matter-of-factly, "It's nothing. I just got into a fight with a boy in Holly's class." Sean's grandmother asked him, "Why did you fight with Holly's classmate? Her classmates are a year or two older than you. Can you even beat them?" He raised his face. "Yes, I can. I made him cry." The aggressive and forceful voice of the little boy softened, and his eyes started to turn red. He asked, "Grandmother, is Holly really going to die soon?" I remember that night very clearly. Not only because the mumps hurt so much that I could only hold a baby bottle and drink milk, but also because, just as I was holding the baby bottle on the sofa, watching TV and drinking milk, Sean's grandmother led Sean directly into our house to verify whether I was about to die. Later, whenever Sean's grandmother or my mom needed a laugh, they would bring up this story again, talking about little Sean's brave and fearless little hero image, talking about how the little hero shed tears only for me, his little beauty. And whenever they talked about it, Sean would walk away silently with a cold face. That was Sean's first time fighting with someone, and he even made them cry. When I recovered and returned to school, I learned that the one who had been beaten to tears was little Fatty in our class. Little Fatty was quite pitiful. He had always naively thought that infectious diseases were terminal illnesses, but I don't think he will ever think that way again. After that, Sean became famous in our class. His name was Holly's good little brother. Several of the girls in the class started to envy me, saying that my brother was so good to me, waiting for me to come home from school every day, sometimes even helping me carry my backpack, and that he even fought with little Fatty for me. Little Fatty was so strong, so tall and meaty, and not many people could beat him. I said, "Don't envy me. He only carries my backpack because he lost to me in rock paper scissors. It was a bet. The little girl said, "That's so nice. I want to play rock paper scissors with your brother too." I said, "No, my brother can only play rock paper scissors with me." Later, somehow, Sean actually shook hands and made peace with little Fatty. Until we graduated from elementary school, Sean was doing better than me in our class, calling the boys in our class brothers. And when summer came, the boys in the back row would split watermelon and ask me to bring a piece to Sean. And then, by association, I could get a piece too. After graduating from elementary school, I went to Northwood High, which was considered a pretty good junior high school. On the day of registration, I saw a familiar-looking boy in the distance. When I walked over, it was Donovan, my elementary school classmate. I immediately felt the excitement of meeting an old acquaintance in a foreign land. I went up to say hello. I said, "Donovan, what a coincidence. I didn't know you were coming to Northwood High too." Donovan said, "What a coincidence. I knew you were coming to Northwood High a long time ago." I asked, "How did you know?" Donovan replied, "Sean told me. We went out to play during the summer to celebrate graduation, and we brought Sean along. Sean asked us if anyone was going to Northwood High, and I said I was. Sean said that you were also at Northwood High, and he even asked me to take care of you for a year." I let out a long "oh" and said, "We'll help each other out. We'll help each other out." Standing under the bright midday sun, I was secretly laughing in my heart. That year was 2001, the tail end of ignorance, the opening of youth. I never really thought about what Donovan meant by "take care of you for a year," or rather, I focused on the take care part and ignored the "for" and "a year." I also never thought that maybe as soon as Sean heard that I was going to Northwood High, he had already decided that he would go to that unfamiliar school, Northwood High, a year later, no matter if it was good or bad. After entering junior high school, I started coming home later than Sean, and no one accompanied me home anymore, and no one lost rock paper scissors on the way home to carry my backpack for me. Whenever I saw Sean running around like a wild horse outside, I, as someone who had been there, wow. Tell him in a deep and resentful voice, "When you get to be my age, you'll be doing homework all day long." After I nagged him too many times, Sean used one sentence to cut me to the quick. He said, "It takes you an hour to do homework, but it only takes me 10 minutes because you're stupid." This was a big blow to me, so I endured the massive blow and learned to make tomato and egg stir-fry, and I presented it to him and demanded that he apologize to me. He took the fragrant plate of tomato and egg stir-fry from my hand and said, "Thanks, see you later." Combining the right time, place, and people, Donovan and I got closer and closer. I was in class 3, and he was in class 7. Unlike saying hi in elementary school, we would now chat for a while when we met. After going back and forth like this many times, one time, a gossipy girl in the class stopped me and whispered, "Holly, are you and that guy in class 7, what's his name, Donovan, together?" I was stunned, repeating those 3 words over and over in my head. Together. At the age of 13, it was the first time I had placed the ambiguous word together on myself, taking those 3 words from afar to near, from blurry to clearly visible. I knew my cheeks must have been red. I said, "No, he's my elementary school classmate. We're just old classmates and good friends." She nodded and walked away, unconvinced. Whether she believed it or not, I was a little unconvinced. I thought about it from beginning to end during this time, and I started to feel that if Donovan and I were really together, then it would be reasonable and natural. One day after school, Donovan came to find me, saying that he was going to his aunt's house today, which was on the way to my house, so he could walk me home. I said, "Okay, let's go then." We walked slower than usual, took the bus later than usual, and got off the bus later than usual. We were always chatting. I can't remember what we were talking about, but we always had something to talk about, like we could never run out of things to say. As we chatted, we arrived at my doorstep. I said, "Donovan, bye. Thank you for walking me home." Donovan looked at me and chuckled, then said, "Holly, see you tomorrow." Then he ran off. My mood, in the words of a well-known romance author, was incredibly happy. I didn't know why I was happy, but I was just happy. When I went upstairs and stepped on the last step, I was startled by a loud door opening sound. I looked up and saw Sean standing in the doorway, starting to learn how to cross his arms and question me at a young age. "Why are you coming home so late?" I said, "It's not that late. It's still bright outside." He said, "You're so happy coming home so late." I said, "Where did you see me happy?" He said, "Upstairs." I began to understand that he had seen Donovan and me upstairs. I said, "He went to his aunt's house and walked me home since it was on the way." He grunted in a condescending way and slammed the door shut. Sean had always been like a child, laughing at me, making fun of me, and yelling at me with toxic words, but he had never been like this before, just coldly grunting and leaving me with silent treatment. That day, I entered the building with a smiling face and entered my house with a black face. My mom knocked on my door and asked me to come out for dinner. I said, "Mom, I'm not eating. I'm on a diet." My mom said, "Then go call Sean over for dinner." I said, "He's not eating either. He's on a diet too." Sean and I started a Cold War. It was our first Cold War, and the reason was a little inexplicable. The Cold War lasted until noon on the weekend, which was when I woke up. I opened my eyes sleepily, and before my vision could clear, I saw Sean sitting in the chair next to my desk, holding a Rubik's Cube in his hand and twisting it. I yawned and said, "What are you doing?" As soon as I finished speaking, I regretted it because I remembered that we were still in a Cold War. Sean said, "I'm hungry." With the mindset of "you dare to be picky with me when you're hungry," I went to brush my teeth and wash my face in my pajamas, and then I went to the kitchen and cooked 2 servings of noodle soup. We ate quietly, without saying a word. After I finished eating, I sat on the sofa and watched TV. After Sean finished eating, he also came over and sat next to me. I didn't talk to him, just staring straight at the TV. After a while, he called my name, Holly. I still didn't look at him, just said, "What?" He said, "Holly." I said, "If you have something to say, say it." He still called, "Holly." I finally turned to look at him angrily. "I told you to say it if you have something to say." He looked at me for a long time and said, "I said I want to make up with you." My fierce face instantly broke down, and I couldn't help coughing and saying, "Then let's make up." I was young at the time, and from then on, I thought that as long as he called my name, we could be as good as before. But after growing up, many things became very difficult, very complicated, and very helpless. No matter how many times he called my name, I could no longer say, "Then let's make up," so simply. The year I was in 8th grade, Sean gloriously became a junior high school student and was gloriously sent to the military camp by bus to participate in his first military training. When he was sent back by bus, he was more than one shade darker. I comforted him, "It took me a year to get my skin back to its original color. Don't worry, a year will pass quickly." But Sean didn't care. If I'm dark, then I'm dark. Later, life went through the same old routine again. He waited at the door of my classroom after school, and we played rock paper scissors on the way home. He started losing more often and started helping me carry my backpack. It is said that heavy backpacks bent the backs of children and shortened their heights, but Sean had been helping me carry my backpack for several years, and my heavy backpack had not been able to subdue him. Especially starting in 9th grade, he was like the Monkey King's magic staff, and I was worried that he would grow to the sky. Before, we were side by side, and when I turned my head, I saw his eyes. Later, when I turned my head, I saw his chin, and finally, when I turned my head, I saw his collarbone. Sean's lower grade school building, I often went to find him during breaks or lunch breaks, and brought him something to eat. After going there 2 or 3 times, I always felt like there were little girls pointing at me on the road. At first, I was a little panicked, but then I gave them a glare, and they would look at the sky or the ground, but definitely not at me. One day, I took 2 apples to find Sean. As soon as I went upstairs, I ran into a boy. The boy glanced at me and immediately turned around and ran back. I didn't think I looked like his teacher, after all, I was still wearing my school uniform. The boy ran to the door of my target class and shouted excitedly, "Sean, Sean, someone's here to see you." While saying this, he winked at me. Then he ran over and smiled at me and said, "He'll be right out." I nodded, "Thank you, underclassman." After the boy finished speaking, he ran away without saying "You're welcome." Sean came out, took one of the apples from my hand, and took a bite. I said, "It seems like all the fruit you've eaten since you were little was fed to you by me. You don't eat fruit unless I remind you. My mom says eating more fruit is good for your health." Sean said, "You feed me enough." I patted his shoulder. "It's good that you know I'm good to you. Don't forget about me after you marry a wife." Sean glared at me. After finishing an apple, I said, "Go back, I'm leaving." He nodded, gave me the apple core, and turned to leave. When I turned around, grimacing and holding he apple core, I saw 3 little girls looking at me and the apple core in my hand. After I walked a few more steps, I heard a small whisper behind me, "He's too mean to his girlfriend. Do you think she's paying for everything?" I thought that after all, I was a year older than them, and I could understand what they were saying. I turned around and looked at them. I said, "She's not paying for everything. I'm his sister." After speaking, I left with the apple core. That was the first time I vaguely saw our relationship in the eyes of strangers. In the late spring and early summer of 2003, an atmosphere of chaos and panic began to spread in every corner of the country. Schools began to close, and every person entering and leaving the campus was strictly checked. Every student and teacher with a temperature over 38 degrees Celsius was required to be forcibly quarantined. That major disease disaster was called the SARS epidemic. That year, we didn't understand what life was. We thought death was far away. It wasn't on us, on our parents, on our classmates, or on our teachers. It was only on TV, in news reports, in other people's sighs. The SARS epidemic of '03 injected it, mixed with panic and tears, into everyone's body. During that time, we each had to measure our temperature every morning, fill out forms, and the data had to be complete and without omissions. I remember that a girl in the class who studied very well was directly quarantined at home because her fever reached 38.1 degrees Celsius. The next day, she called the teacher crying. She said, "Teacher, the high school entrance exam is coming soon. Please let me go back." The teacher said, "It's not up to me to let you come back. You need to get injections and take medicine. You can come back when your fever goes down. Your studies are fine, you won't miss much." The female classmate gave a choked up okay. Later, her fever went down, and she returned to school healthy. She told us that she actually wanted to say one more thing on the phone. She wanted to say, "Teacher, if I'm really going to die, then I want to try to make it to the exam room." After she finished speaking, we laughed, laughing at how she was so focused on studying. She said, "I just feel like I've worked so hard to study, but I haven't gained anything yet, and I'm not satisfied." We laughed again. During that time, schools required that students in each class not move around casually, so Sean didn't eat fruit for a long time. Later, I experienced the high school entrance exam and was admitted to Lakeside Academy, the third ranked of the top 4 high schools. Lakeside Academy implemented a boarding system, and because it was far from home, I experienced my first dorm life. Less than a week after boarding, my mom got me a cell phone and would call me every night. The conversations were always the same. My mom, "Did you eat dinner tonight?" Me, "Yes." My mom, "How's your studying? Are you tired?" Me, "Not tired." My mom, "Do you have enough money?" Me, "Yes." Sean would also call me, but compared to my mom's every day, he would call me every Wednesday, the middle day of the week. At this time, the conversation was, me, "Did you eat?" Sean, "Yes." Me, "How's your studying?" Sean, "Better than yours." Me, "Do you miss your sister?" Sean, "No." Me, "Then I won't go back on the weekend." Sean, "Auntie said we're having hot pot on the weekend." A 15-year-old boy. Every week when I went back to see him, he was a new version of himself. He was a little taller, his shoulders were a little wider, his features were clearer, and one day, I even noticed that soft down had started to grow on the corners of his lips. The following year, he officially entered 10th grade. On registration day, I waited early at the entrance of the boys' dorm, watching him fill out the forms in the distant registration line, and then walkin' over, pulling his suitcase. The weather that day was good, the sunlight was good, the surrounding scenery was good, the youthful energy of the high school students was good, and the way he walked over was good. Even though it was the sneakers he always wore, the casual pants he always wore, and the t-shirt he always wore, I saw a different Sean. I heard that growing up happens in an instant. I thought, my boy has grown up. And I was only just reaching his shoulder. I looked at him and smiled. I said, "Don't be afraid, underclassmen. Your upperclassmen will take care of you." He also looked at me and smiled. He said, "Upperclassmen, you're getting shorter and shorter. I should take care of you." I helped him make his new bedding, and then took him to the cafeteria to eat and walk around the campus. The attention we attracted along the way was the vanity that every 17-year-old girl couldn't refuse. The high school military training was held at the school stadium. Under the scorching sun, the stadium was filled with freshmen wearing green camouflage uniforms, and outside the stadium were circles of upperclassmen and upperclasswomen who had snuck out of gym class to take a break. Boys looked at which new female student was pretty, and girls looked at which new male student was handsome. And I found Sean's team in the crowd, and then found him, and brought him water and food. After bringing them so many times, I realized that the other boys in his dorm were looking at me with pitiful and begging eyes. Later, when I bought things, I would bring enough for their entire dorm. From then on, these boys started calling me sis so sweetly. I said to Sean, "Look, I've only brought them food and drinks for a few days, and they call me sis so sweetly. I've been bringing things to you for so many years, and you've never called me sis once." Sean said, "I can't lower myself for a few bucks." After the new student military training ended, Sean laced my roommates on the way back to the dorm every day. When school was dismissed, my roommates would push me out, "Go boo go, your handsome little brother is here, we don't need to accompany you." They would also often say, "Holly, I have a crush on your brother. From now on, you're my brother-in-law." Usually, I would pat their shoulders and say, "Figure out the generations before you propose." They would also say, when I was helping Sean wash his school uniform, "Holly, when I become your sister-in-law, will you wash my clothes too?" Usually, at this time, I would say, "Yes, I will wash you." These were good times. In the good times, there were countless love letters passing between boys' and girls' hands. There were countless small words left on the corners of walls and desks. There were many "I like you" and "I'm sorry" lingering between hugs and turnings. There were many crushes and tears, many sobs and confessions, and many companionships. In the good times, we argued, we laughed loudly, we sat in class and wrote furiously, and we stood by the plastic track and shouted, "Come on, run faster." Good times were too good. And the best thing about good times was that they passed in a flash. In September '06, I took off the last school uniform of my youth, clinked glasses, and shed tears with 50 or so boys and girls one night, and then boarded the train to Buffalo, New York. I said, "Sean, wash your own school uniforms from now on, and remember to eat more fruit." He said, "I saw the boys in your class hugging you." I said, "That was our goodbye." He said, "I want to say goodbye too." Then he opened his arms, inch by inch, a stretching gesture. That was the first hug between Sean and me since we were little, the first time I heard such a powerful, fast heartbeat in his chest. In the second semester of freshman year, a boy stopped me at the entrance of the college library reading room. He said, "You're Holly, right?" "My name is Dave." I said, "Do you have a brother named so-and-so?" He laughed out loud, and then held up a student ID in front of me. "You borrowed a book and left your student ID just now." I looked at the cruel pixels of my student ID photo, took it, and said thank you. He looked at me and smiled. "No need to thank me, how about you treat me to a meal? I haven't had lunch yet. I said, what do you want to eat? He said, just the cafeteria's meat and 2 sides. I said, okay. For a cafeteria's meat and 2 sides, I met Dave, who was 2 years older than me. He was nothing like Dave from that TV series. He was efficient and perfect, mature and generous, possessing all the charm a senior should have. When I mentioned Dave during a phone call with my mom, she said, you can have a relationship now. I replied, Mom, I'm having a late-in-life crush, and it's not even a relationship yet. On the second night after that call, Sean called me while I was belting out songs with my roommates at a karaoke bar. Penny leaned over and shouted in my ear, Holly, you have a call. It's Sean. I took my cell phone and walked out of the room to answer it. I said, hello. A few seconds passed before he responded, where are you? I said, I'm at a karaoke bar with my roommates. He said, when are you coming back? I said, when summer vacation starts. Why? There was silence again. I thought the noise here was too loud for me to hear clearly. I figured he must be under a lot of pressure with the college entrance exam coming up. I comforted him, Sean, your college entrance exam is coming up soon. Go to bed early. You're so smart you don't need to stay up late studying. Just relax. He said, none of your business. Then he hung up. Penny came out and asked me what was wrong. I said, it's nothing. My little brother has his college entrance exams soon and he's in a bad mood, just venting to me. Actually, there are some things we don't understand at all, or we think we understand. Then later, after short hair becomes long hair, after jeans become skirts. Maybe we're wearing aprons and cooking in the kitchen. Maybe we're holding toys and making the baby in the crib laugh. Or maybe we're pushing a shopping cart, browsing the spice rack at the supermarket. And suddenly, we remember those old stories. We think of that boy's phone call, and in a flash, we suddenly understand. Actually, he wanted to say, where are you? Don't be with other men. When are you coming back? Come back soon. And, I miss you. The day I returned home for summer vacation by train was a very hot day. In the heat of around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, I saw Sean's figure at the station exit. He walked towards me from a distance, his figure and face gradually becoming clearer, and finally he took the suitcase from my hand. I said, Sean, you shaved. He said, I shaved a long time ago. I said, Sean, your Adam's apple is showing. He said, it's been there for a while. I said, Sean, you missed me. He said, not at all. I said, why aren't you following the script? Then we both started laughing. That summer was when Sean finished his college entrance exam and was filling out his college application forms. I sometimes asked him, have you decided which college to go to? Are there any majors you're interested in? But for some reason, every time I asked such questions, he looked impatient and didn't want to talk to me at all, so I stopped asking. A get-together during a long vacation is a must. After I attended my junior high school reunion, I attended my high school reunion, and then Sean, I attended his graduation banquet after the college entrance exam. The night he went to the graduation banquet, I was at home wearing pajamas and eating grapes, sitting on the sofa watching primetime TV with my parents. Half a plate of grapes was gone when I received a call. The person on the other end of the phone told me, I am one of Sean's roommates. Sean drank too much, can you come pick him up? I told him to text me the address and I would be right over. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw 20 or so boys and girls staggering around in front of the hotel entrance. Some were sober, some were not, some were sober and helping those who were not, and some who were not sober were entangled with each other. Then I saw Sean leaning against the wall of the hotel, his head down, surrounded by his roommates who had called me sister for 3 years because I had once helped them out. I walked over and looked Sean up and down. I said, he's not that drunk. He's not making a scene. The boy next to him said, you don't know, when Sean gets drunk, he's like this. He doesn't say a word and stands very straight, but if you ask him to walk, he definitely won't walk in a straight line. I said, okay, I'll take him away first. After saying goodbye to the group of kids, I helped Sean to the side of the road to get a taxi. After a few steps, I realized Sean's roommate was telling the truth. You see, his eyes are open and his mouth is quiet, but he just can't walk in a straight line. Plus, he's so tall, I was using all my strength. In the end, we walked several different letters, the easiest being S. It was a little past 9 or 10 in the evening, and there were very few taxis on the road. I saw Sean's eyes were about to close. I stopped and patted his face. I said, "Sean, don't sleep. If you fall asleep, I won't be able to carry you." He opened his eyes and had a little reaction. I couldn't help but laugh at his appearance. I teased him, "Sean, look up. Look how beautiful the moon in the sky is, so big and beautiful. Do you want it? If you want it, you can't sleep." His eyes brightened a lot, following my finger upwards, and then down again, his gaze stopping on my face. The next second, he leaned down, cupped my face, and gave me a fleeting touch on the lips, his breath filled with the smell of whiskey. Then he raised his head, looked into my eyes and said, "I want it." A long time later, I heard someone tell me a story about a monkey and the moon. Just the night before, he said to me, "Holly, I'm 18 years old." I remembered a few days ago when I met Donovan at the junior high school reunion. He was also drunk, but he didn't stay silent when he was drunk. When he was drunk, he liked to talk about the past. He said to me, "Holly, I used to like you in junior high school. I wanted to be with you, but then Sean came to me and said, 'Holly can't be with anyone else.'" It was past 11 when I carried Sean back. Sean's grandmother was anxiously waiting at home and finally felt relieved when she saw us come in. After Sean fell asleep in his room, Sean's grandmother closed the door and said to me, "Holly, come here, I want to talk to you." We sat on the sofa, watching the late night outside, looking at the hands on the wall. She began, "Holly, Sean's parents want to take him abroad to study at a college/university. I heard that studying abroad is very good for his future, and it's easy to find a job no matter where he goes when he comes back. But Sean just doesn't want to go. He's very stubborn every time his mom calls. You've been to college/university, you must know that going abroad is all the rage now. Can you help me persuade Sean?" I was processing her words, and suddenly I thought about how many times I had asked him which college/university he wanted to go to, and he didn't want to talk to me. So that was the reason. She continued, "I know you two have a good relationship, growing up together since childhood. Maybe Sean just can't bear to leave you." Her words hit my awkward spot. If it had been before tonight, I definitely wouldn't have felt this way. I eagerly took her words, "Grandmother, I'll definitely help you persuade him. I'll talk to him tomorrow." I knew I was being evasive. The next day, seeing Sean's condition, I knew he had blacked out from drinking and had completely forgotten about sexually harassing me. He even ordered me to pour him a glass of water. While he was drinking water, I recited the draft I had prepared all night. When I felt the time was right, I said, "Sean, your parents want you to study abroad, right? I think that's a great idea. Many college/university students want to go abroad now, and they're breaking their heads trying to become exchange students. But you don't even have to try. Your parents can help you get it. Many people are envious, and you'll definitely have no problem finding a job with your expat status in the future, and your career will be great. So don't be stubborn with your mom, just go abroad. Anyway, it's only a few years, not long." As I said this, I didn't realize that there would be swarms of expats in the future. After Sean finished listening, he put down his cup and asked me, "Are you saying you want me to go abroad?" I nodded, "I do." He said, "Then you won't be able to see me even once a year." I said, "It's okay. I'd rather see you come back as a little overseas returnee." We had similar conversations many times before the end of that summer vacation, but his attitude was always ambiguous. I didn't know if he agreed or not. The day of my return to school was getting closer and closer, and the date of his parents' planned trip abroad was getting closer and closer. On the day I boarded the train to return to school, Sean refused to say goodbye to me. Later, Dave and I were at the library. I went to the bathroom in the middle, and when I came back, I saw Dave waving my cell phone at me, saying someone had called you, a boy. I told him to tell the caller I'd call back when I returned. I took my cell phone, looked at it, and said it was my little brother. I called Sean back, and he picked up immediately. I said, I went to the bathroom just now, I didn't get it. He said, someone else answered for you. I said, yeah, what's up? He said, can't I call you if there's nothing wrong? Now I need a reason to call you. I said, Sean, don't be childish. He said, you always think I'm a kid, you only like older guys, right? I said, you're acting like a kid right now. A few seconds of silence, he didn't argue with me anymore, but hung up the phone. Dave smiled and said, your brother is pretty fierce. As soon as I answered and said hello, he immediately asked who I was, like he wanted to eat me. I said, don't mind him, he's just immature. Later, Sean's grandmother called me. She said, Holly, thank you for helping me persuade Sean. He really listened and went abroad with his mom. I said, you're welcome. That day, I stayed in my dorm all day watching a popular TV series called Sorry, I Love You, crying my eyes out at the tearful faces of Lim Soo-young and So Ji-sub. Sean never called me after he went abroad. My roommate said, Holly, you and your brother haven't talked on the phone in a long time. I remember you two used to call each other all the time, you had a really good relationship. I said, he went abroad and thinks international phone calls are too expensive. In the winter of 2008, I had just finished my lab class in the evening. When I returned to my dorm, my shoes were covered in white, unmelted snow that I had brought back all the way. That night, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered, hello. There was no response. I thought it was a scam call and was about to hang up when there was a voice on the phone, just two short words, Holly. My heart skipped a beat and I suddenly wanted to cry. I said, Sean, you're inhuman. He didn't respond to my words. He said in an extremely calm voice, without any emotional fluctuation, Holly, do you miss me? Without waiting for my response, he asked again, do you? I said, I do. He said, okay. Then he hung up the phone, leaving me on this side, both angry and crying. I thought, Sean, you're really not human. You only called me after so long, and you only called for 13 seconds. 13 seconds just to prove that I missed you, and then you hung up without saying anything else. Are you that short on phone bill money? I remember when I woke up the next day, it was around 3 p.m. The skin around my eyes was swollen like two peaches. My roommates were on dates, going to class, practicing driving. I was so hungry I was dizzy. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and got out of bed, wearing slippers and a puffer jacket to go downstairs to the cafeteria. As soon as I left the dorm, I saw a tall, thin snowman in the snow at the bottom of the steps, wearing a black and white puffer jacket, his skin almost frozen transparent. Behind him were flower beds covered in snow and several snow-covered pine trees with green and white intertwined. His expression was a bit frozen, and every breath was a quickly disappearing mist. He smiled at me and said, Holly, I'm back. I don't remember how long I stood on the steps. When I came back to my senses, I said, how long have you been waiting here? Why didn't you call me? He looked a little aggrieved. Your cell phone was turned off. My heart ached with a pang of tenderness. I said, wait here, I'll go upstairs and change my shoes. I ran upstairs as fast as I could and changed out of my pajamas and slippers, grabbed my hand warmers and went downstairs. I gave the hand warmers to Sean to hold, and then took him to the nearest fish stew pot restaurant near the school. Sean was starving. He hadn't eaten or slept for almost 20 hours. I said, did the flight attendant starve you on the plane? He said, I couldn't eat anything then. I said, does your mom know you're back? He said, I came back without telling her. I asked, where are you staying tonight? He said, you'll come with me to see the ice sculpt your exhibition. That night we went to see the ice sculpture exhibition. It was a fairy tale ice city, with mottled colors and thriving inhabitants. Sean and I were both small inhabitants of it. To get to the castle, you had to climb 5 long steps. Sean said he wanted to climb, and I said I didn't. We argued at the bottom of the castle. He probably thought I was too short, and when he got tired of arguing, he put his hand on my shoulder and continued arguing with me. When we both stopped and stared at each other, a brown-haired foreign girl came over and greeted us, holding her SLR camera and showing us a picture of Sean and me looking at each other. If it weren't for this foreign girl, I wouldn't have realized that Sean's English was so good. I remembered that I used to help him with his English. That girl was a backpacker who often used her SLR camera to record the scenery she passed. She left her Facebook and said she would upload the picture online and ask for our opinion. Of course, we had no objection. After seeing the ice sculpture exhibition, we booked a room at a nearby hotel. When we were little, Sean and I often played at my house until very late, and then we would fall asleep on the bed together. In our sleep, he would kick my waist and I would kick his face, but this night, we both seemed to have grown up and become sensible, quietly placing our bodies in the most correct and straight posture, listening to each other's inexplicably amplified breathing in the dark. I opened my eyes, looking at the pitch-black ceiling, and said, "You should go back tomorrow." He said, "Okay." I said, "Why did you suddenly come back?" He said, "Because you said you missed me." I said, "I believe you." He said, "Then can I say goodbye to you?" I said, "Yes." Then the other half of the bed sank down. He turned over and hugged me, resting my head against his chest, his palm covering the top of my head. I said, "I can't breathe, you re-suffocating me." He said, "I know what I'm doing, I won't suffocate you to death." We didn't say anything else. After a long time, I gradually became sleepy. He called my name above my head, the vibration of his voice traveling from his Adam's apple to his chest, and finally to my eardrums. He said, "Holly." I said, He said, "Because I missed you." From the time I became sensible to the best years of my 20s, all my ordinary and romantic moments, my emotions and sadness, my tears and laughter were given to me by Sean. He mixed into my life with fragmented time, becoming a part of my life. After that, no one could ever prove they missed me with a 13-second phone call and crossed the ocean to see me after more than 20 hours of sleeplessness. The day after Sean's plane took off, about an hour later, I received a call from Sean's mother on the way back to school from the airport. She said, "Is this Holly?" I said, "Yes, Auntie." She said, "Did Sean go back to see you?" I paused for a moment and told the truth, "Yes, but he's already on the plane back now." She said, "I don't know what you said to him, making him run back to see you from so far away, but I think you should know that Sean will have a great future. He's smart and motivated, and I'll help him along the way. Do you understand?" I said, "I understand." She said, "His father and I have worked hard for most of our lives for him, and we also hope that he can find a girl who is well-matched and can help him. Not someone who pulls him out of school to go on dates when his studies are important. Do you understand?" I said, "Auntie, you've misunderstood." She said, "Don't explain. I've heard that you two have had a good relationship since you were little, and it's inevitable that you'll have feelings, but that was all in childhood. When you get married and start a career in the future, think about it, it's just children playing house." I said, "Auntie, do ain't worry, we've never been together, and I have a boyfriend now, and I'm doing well. I also wish you can find a well-matched, virtuous wife and good mother for your son. Auntie, I have something to do, so I'll hang up now, goodbye." I hung up the phone, and tears streamed down my face. In my 20s, we had no money, no experience, and were only poor in self-esteem, so in order to maintain that bit of self-esteem, we could abandon everything. In the rearview mirror, I saw the 40-something driver looking at me with a knowing look. He said, "Little girl, when I was young, I had a girlfriend, I liked her very much, and she liked me very much, but her mom didn't like me, but I wasn't afraid. I thought love was just a matter between two people, I wasn't marrying her mom." I said, "What happened later?" He said, "We broke up." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because of her mom." I thought of Sean before boarding the plane, when he suddenly turned around and asked me, "Holly, can you not be with anyone else for now?" I said, "You're being nosy." He glared at me, looking angry. After a while, he deflated and asked me very seriously, "Can you wait for me?" Later, Sean and I only had 2 phone calls. On the phone, I said, "Sean, I have a boyfriend." He said, "Say that again." I said, "I have a boyfriend." He said, "Holly, you're lying to me." I said, "I'm not lying to you. His name is Dave. My mom must have mentioned him to you." He said, "I don't believe you." I said, "He's right next to me. Do you want to talk to him?" He said, "Holly, I wish I could kill you." The phone was hung up hard. Dave smiled benevolently on the side. "Looks like I didn't come in handy." I said, "You did. I know him. He wouldn't talk to you. You standing next to me just gave me courage. Thank you, senior." The second time was a little after 4 a.m. I was sleeping when the harsh ringtone woke me up. I saw the caller ID and was mostly awake. I swirled the phone, but the other party didn't say anything, just heavy, irregular breathing. I instinctively felt he was drunk. I said, "Sean." He said, "Holly, I miss you." I said, "Yeah, where are you?" He said, "I can't bear the thought of you being with someone else." I said, "Sean, you're drunk." He said, "Holly, I can't see you. I can't stand being in the UK." That day, at 4 a.m., it wasn't fully light yet. I held my cell phone, sobbing, unable to say a word. Later, my teeth felt numb. I said, "Focus on your studies." He said, "I can try to be more mature than him. I can treat you better." I said, "Sean, you'll always be my little brother." For a long time, there was no response. Later, he said, "Holly, how can you be so cruel?" From then on, Sean never called again. Everyone thought Sean didn't talk after he got drunk, but he only told the truth when he was drunk, only said what he wanted to say most. Whether it was him or me, we both thought that people who grew up together since childhood would never separate in the second half of their lives. So we weren't in a hurry. We weren't in a hurry to argue. We thought we would always make up one day. We weren't in a hurry to separate. We thought we would always reunite one day. We weren't in a hurry to like each other. We thought it would always be like this, together for a lifetime. When we argued and could no longer make up, when we separated and could no longer reunite, we suddenly knew it was too late. It was too late to like each other. It was too late to be together. "My boy, I watched you grow up, but I can't be with you until you're old." After graduating from college/university, I became a magazine editor. A college/university classmate and friend jointly opened a wedding photo studio and wanted me to help her take some photos as a model. I said, "I need a modeling fee." My classmate said, "A bowl of noodle soup." I said, "That's all I'm worth?" She said, "Then I'll find you a groom." I said, "That modeling fee is acceptable." It was meant as a joke, but when I went, I found out that I was the bride and Dave was the groom. I immediately understood that my classmate was deliberately trying to set us up. My classmate winked at me, "How is it? How's this groom?" I said, "Stop messing around. If we were going to be together, we would have been together a long time ago." The wedding photos were beautiful. Looking at the pictures on the computer screen, we really looked like a newly married couple. Dave smiled and said, "Now all we need is a marriage license." I looked at him, and he patted me. "If you don't take it seriously, I won't take it seriously." Not long after that wedding photo shoot, Donovan asked me out for tea. I laughed at him. "What's with the artsy stuff, drinking tea?" He said, "You don't understand, it's art." We experienced art while chatting about this and that. Finally, I understood that he had gone a long way around, and the main question he wanted to ask me was, "Holly, are you getting married?" I said, "Who did you hear that from?" He said, "Some classmates saw your wedding photos and posted them online. We all saw them." I said, "I was just modeling for my classmate." He said, "Oh," and then hesitated to open his mouth. "Sean also asked me if you were getting married." My heart skipped a beat, and then I said, "Just tell him I'm getting married." At the end of 2013, I went home to celebrate Christmas. My parents were making pasta in the kitchen. I had never noticed before, but my parents already had white hair. My mom was rolling out the pasta dough while sighing. I remember when you and Sean were little, we always celebrated Christmas together. Your Sean's grandmother made the best pasta filling. Sean's grandmother had moved to her children's place a year after Sean went abroad. A new family moved across the hall, young parents with a 7 or 8-year-old daughter. The little daughter often ran over to ask me to braid her hair and put on lipstick. Things had changed. My mom said, "Holly, your Sean's grandmother said Sean has a girlfriend, who also studies in the UK, comes from a good family, and is beautiful. They're planning to get married around June. That's great, Sean has grown up." That Christmas, in the midst of the noisy and lively firecrackers, I clearly realized that he was no longer mine. From then on, Sean is Sean, and Holly is Holly. Holly and Sean are in faded old photos, they are in old stories. From January to June, the days had never passed so quickly. On the day Sean got married, Penny and I were sitting in a fish stew pot restaurant, our stomachs full of alcohol. We drank all the customers out of the restaurant, drinking until late at night. I lay on the table crying, and Penny cried with me. I didn't tell her that Sean had contacted me in the past 6 months. He said, "Holly, as long as you say you miss me like you used to, I'll give up everything abroad and go back to find you." The words I wanted to blurt out were already on the tip of my tongue. I wanted to say I miss you so much, the most I've missed you in over 20 years. But I couldn't say it even if I gritted my teeth. I also didn't tell her that the night before, I received an unsigned email. The email said, when he was little, the monkey wanted the moon, and he knew that the moon wasn't in the water but in the sky, so the monkey wanted to be a superhero, to have a jetpack that could take him hundreds of thousands of miles in one somersault to pick the moon. But later he realized that there were many monkeys, but only one superhero. The monkey wants to say sorry to the moon, because he didn't become her superhero.